Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Berman, the host of the Cyber Hero Adventures Show. Today, we have a very, very special show focusing on the nexus of cybersecurity and education. There are several primary objectives of what we want to do today, the first of which is to shine the light on the collective and individual efforts of some really great thought leaders in their organizations as they try to protect our children from all types of criminals online and also protect the buildings in which they work. And to begin that conversation, I just want to say thank you to our sponsor, Fortinet, for making all of this possible. Speaking of Fortinet, let me invite to the show Bob Turner. Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, good morning, Gary.
Thank you so much for being here. And as I just mentioned, thanks so much for you and Fortinet for making this show and also the National Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week poster contest possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we know that Fortinet has a longstanding commitment to education, and one of the things that I'd like our audience to really understand is you've made a public statement about a rather large initiative to inspire and encourage and educate and train the next generation of defenders of the digital universe. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have committed to training 1 million cybersecurity professionals over the next 5 years, and this is in part a way to stem the tide. There is something to the order of 3.12 million open cybersecurity positions globally, and we want to do our part to train them, and we're going to utilize our training academy and our Network Security Institute to provide the opportunities for people to learn more and even earn some levels of certification within the industry, especially when we're dealing with the ever increasing threats and focusing on education. A 30% increase in attacks since 2019 2020 timeframe. That's amazing, and the fact is that of all of the increases in attacks, they're hitting education more than other industries. So, great graphic there. You can see the increase.
Yeah, indeed, and it's unfortunate that the criminals are taking advantage, of our children and our educational ecosystem, especially now because there's such a convergence of digital transformation and kids learning from home or learning from anywhere.
Well, and it's those environments that may or may not be served properly by broadband. And that's a bit of the challenge, and we've got some thoughts on how to try to change that a little bit. But really, it's education is the environment where security is important. However, they're not always staffed or equipped properly to deal with this onslaught of cyber attacks that are seemingly attacking the K-12 and higher education arena.
And, speaking of one of the interesting things that you're doing, you have a partnership now with Linksys. Tell our audience what we're looking at here regarding homework secured by Fortinet.
Well, this is an initiative that is out there that we are, really trying to help close the homework gap. And this is something that is very, very important in the U.S. today, especially with Chairman Rosenworcel of the Federal Communications Commission making that a key thing. It's the homework gap that we need to close by providing more broadband, and so we partnered with Linksys, and we have created a what we call homework for education. There's also a homework for business. Two different paradigms if you think about it that way. But for education, it's really focused at putting mobile hotspots into the hands of students who don't have broadband access at home, and it's also connecting to a properly configured Fortinet firewall on the cloud. And in that case, we're at least doing the minimum protections under the Child Internet Protection Act and COPPA, other regulations that are really focused at the K-12 arena. But this is an opportunity.
Indeed. And your role has expanded a little bit. When you and I first started talking about this, you were focused maybe exclusively or primarily on higher education, but now you're doing everything, right? Because you're quite in demand, I would imagine.
Well, the position was created, and I'm the first person to occupy it, and the role is really we call it the field CISO for education, and education is the broadest spectrum. And my background is mainly in higher education, but it's also a broad spectrum of security issues which do translate. And in fact, that part of the people I get to talk to is sort of an evangelist and an advisor is in the K-12 arena.
Indeed. And so speaking of the K-12 arena, I want to invite Mike Saylor to the show. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Hey, guys, I'm doing well.
We're so glad that you're here. You're doing something that mirrors, very well the mission, certainly, of what Bob is talking about now. Maybe you can share with our audience a little bit about some of the cool stuff you're doing in the state of Texas.
Certainly. Yeah. So we're a managed security services company, and one of our largest areas of focus is K-12. And so as we onboard more school districts throughout the state and actually throughout the country, but the idea is how do we involve the students? How do we give students more exposure and experience in cyber outside of just a normal course curriculum? And so for a school district, we're already collecting and analyzing their data, and with our platform, helping a school district that has a spare classroom, maybe it's not being used one period of the day or can be dedicated. It just needs a computer and internet access. And we can develop a curriculum with that school district around what it means to be a SOC analyst or a threat hunter, some of these entry-level basic skills for cyber, and then build a security operations center on campus and teach students and teachers what it's like to be running and monitoring cybersecurity for an organization. In this case, it's their own school. And then the mission or the idea is if we can get them involved as a junior in high school, then hopefully by the time they graduate, they've got some level of experience that could lend itself to possibly an entry-level job.
I mean, that is such an important need that you're filling, because one of the things that is widely understood in the cybersecurity community is this kind of tautology where people are going to hire someone with 2 to 3 to 5 years of experience, but how do you get it right?
Right.
And
so typically it's after high school. You're in a college program or you're in a tech school, or being self-taught, and then you're looking for those internship opportunities. But even in those situations, intern opportunities are fairly limited, but they're also very focused. You're attached to a particular employee or department, and so your exposure to cyber is very focused on whatever that opportunity might lend itself to.
Yeah, indeed. And you've had quite a bit of success so far, correct?
We have. So we've had an intern program for 11 years, and then we just joined the Department of Labor's apprentice program earlier this year, and we've had about 500 college students come through our intern program over the years, with about a 10%, maybe a little more than 10% success rate at helping place them in jobs.
I mean, I just think that's an outstanding, series of metrics. Has it been, what's it been like trying to get alignment, between the various stakeholders in the education cybersecurity ecosystem? You're smiling because is that a challenge, or why are you smiling?
It is. So I've also been a college professor for 20 years. And so I've seen it both at the higher ed level and the K-12, in the K-12 space. And it's somewhat community. influenced. And what I mean by that is, like in higher ed, we have these advisory boards where organizations come and advise the school on the curriculum, give them feedback. And that's really what a lot of schools are looking for is placement. So as people finish their program, how do we get them into the job market? And so these advisors are telling them what their organization is looking for in new hires around cyber and some of these technical disciplines. And so then the school is designing or developing their program based on those requirements. And so you might go to one school and get a experience with skills and education that doesn't necessarily lend itself to the job that you found or the opportunity you're pursuing. So that's one kind of disconnect. There's another disconnect in that in cyber, and I spoke to a research scientist yesterday. There's another disconnect in cyber, in that cyber is not just an applied discipline; it's also a research discipline. You can't maintain your skills and your effectiveness if you don't continue to research and learn. But in just about every cyber program I'm aware of, there is not until you get to the graduate level, there's not a research component. And if you take that back to K-12, we're really not good at teaching students how to do their own research. And what does research mean, and how do we quantify that? And then back on the curriculum topic, a lot of K-12 is kind of constrained by state requirements. And so there are already approved curriculum that schools can pick from. But much like higher ed, any deviation from that or anything new has to go through these hurdles of review and approval, and then once you have this great new program in place, now especially in K-12, now you've got to find an instructor, a teacher that's capable of delivering it and expanding on it. And so yeah, there's some similarities between K-12 and higher ed. But I think fundamentally it's just, education and the administration of it is kind of slow moving.
Yeah, and also this transcends borders. So I want to bring in Tyson Johnson, the CEO of CyberNB, to the show because Tyson and his team are doing some incredibly important work in multiple areas of cybersecurity in general, but also K through 12 education. They've created what's that behind you, Tyson?
Gary, how are you? Great to connect. Thanks for the invite. Bob, Mike, great to hear what you guys are up to. And Bob, we're so pleased to have Fortinet as a member of the ecosystem up here in our SIPnet. And Mike, I know we have a lot of things that we can discuss. But Gary, the character you see here is called Cybear. It's a New Brunswick black bear who helps youth figure out how to fight cyber criminals and become more cyber aware.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things is you're in New Brunswick. For our United States audience, tell us a little bit about your origin, and you're just moving to some cool new facilities there, right?
That's right. We're actually we're now into a level 2 secure facility with about 15,000 square feet of space that we're occupying. That has a fusion center environment, so a collaborative SOC environment with multiple critical infrastructure owners and operators sharing best practices, sharing threat intelligence, indicators of compromise, etc. And then we have a event center / learning center, which will be used for running advanced training sessions for professionals, but also mentoring and working with youth as well. And we also have a couple of about 4 labs within our ecosystem here within our footprint. And they're all subleased right now, and one of the a few MSPs in here, but also a group that's going to be looking at securing 5G infrastructure as well. So there's a lot of R&D. As an organization, we are a pan-Canadian not-for-profit center, headquartered in the East Coast, and we're a coordination body between industry, government, and academia. And specific to this topic today, one of our core pillars of our strategy is all around workforce and skills. And so we have a number of K-12 initiatives that we feel are critical to continue developing to ensure, yes, talent pipeline, but also digital resiliency and cyber awareness, cyber hygiene for the youth of today and the youth of tomorrow.
Yep. And so here is a cover of your most recent comic. It's called Timeout. Tell us, what are we looking at here?
So this is comic number 2. So in this comic, not to give away the ending, you know, for all who are going to look at the comic, but Cyber is on vacation during this particular situation. So Reverse is the other kind of hero in the story. So you see Reverse there with the cool sunglasses. So they help youth get in front of a particular, I think it's a ransomware event, and help figure out how they could have stopped that in the first place and what the youth need to know. Now, I should say, we are huge fans of all of our friends south of the border. We have been since 2016, quite frankly, strong advocates and participants in the U.S. NICE framework. We work closely with Davina and Danielle on the education front. Our director of workforce and skills attended, unfortunately, virtually. It was supposed to be in person, but this COVID thing slowed it all down. But we attended virtually a NICE event that was based in, virtually in Garmisch, if you will, last year. And so these comics that you're seeing have teacher guides that connect to them. So there's actual learner guides for each comic. And the learning or the particular issues or items also help line up nicely to the NICE framework. I should say, then expanding on that to a lot of our 9 to 12 programs that we run in the school systems here, as well as Saroria League North, which we're launching in the spring, which is ramping up now, is all based largely on the NICE framework. So ensuring that the skills and competencies that are being taught in the classrooms to the youth line up with the types of jobs or careers that industry is in demand of out in the quote unquote real world. And so getting industry to connect in early with youth in that 9 to 12 category allows them to, quite frankly, get co-ops and apprenticeships right out of high school. And then they can figure out what the next path is for post-secondary.
Wow, that's incredibly interesting. And one of the interesting things about this whole experience from listening and learning about K through 12 education is there are a large number of very well-intended efforts to solve this myriad, of issues associated with K through 12. They do seem to be a little bit diffused, though, or in some cases, redundant. Bob, what are your thoughts about that? Is there a way to coalesce this energy so it becomes a force multiplier, for the greater good of the mission? You're muted, Bob.
Sorry about that. Forgot to do that.
Okay.
Happens every time. But I see the challenge as really understanding the education ecosystem and then understanding where the issues really are. And I categorize it in probably 5 or 6 little buckets here. And the first of all is the just a growing attack surface, a growing digital surface, if you want to call it that. We have before COVID, we all had people going to the classroom and the teachers were in the classroom, and there was not a lot of tech necessarily involved. There was tech involved, but not to the proliferation that we have today, because now you have students working in hybrid learning situations where maybe they're in school 1 or 2 days a week and the rest of the week they're at home. Same thing with the teachers. Maybe they're in the classroom, maybe they're virtually to the classroom. So that opens up the sphere of the digital surface tremendously, and it now is including the home networks. So how many folks have been advised to go ahead and change that factory password on their home Wi-Fi routers, and how many have actually done it? I know that there's a lot of education out there, but that's just kind of one of those things that says that the attack surface is growing, and it's including devices that the corporate organizations that running the K-12 security program don't necessarily have the ability to influence. But I also think that we're still in the understanding the breadth and the depth of what we can do to secure the environments, as well as the utility of being able to have the option for the distance learning, for the greater use of technology, and frankly, we need to be focusing on the areas we're going to secure. It's not just the student data; it's the whole experience.
Indeed, and this is incredibly complicated. And Mike, I want to turn to a graphic that you provided us pertaining to how you operate. Help us sort out what we're looking at here.
Well, yeah. Well, it's a mess. No. So the idea was to try and tie together as many synergies as possible to facilitate the growth of someone that's interested in cybersecurity. And so those could be K-12, it could be higher ed, it could be someone out in an organization in the community. And then there's other partners, like over on the left there, you see the K-12 ISAC, also known as K-12-6. And so how do we tie all these things together, not only to facilitate the growth and maturity of a person that's interested in cyber, but also how do we add value to those components of the ecosystem, especially around K-12, so that we're as effective as we can be as a cyber community. So the idea with the ecosystem is, go down to the level that makes sense. So probably high school. We've done some work in junior highs, especially with our summer camps. Expand that scope to include those that can influence and support a program like that, like community partners like Fortinet, like the K-12-6 ISAC. So where we're providing them exposure, but we're also leveraging the value that they bring, and look at how do we better align the education curriculum? How do we better align relationships with future job seekers, future employers, and just begin to help network as a community? Because especially in cyber, being able to phone a friend, being able to collaborate is something that needs to continue to improve. Collaboration is huge in this industry.
Well, forgive the interruption. I just want to build on something you're saying here. So, when we look at that graphic, it is complicated. So each one of those segments, each one of those icons, that you have, has its own set of challenges and opportunities around it. How would you describe how what you're doing in Texas is solving some of these problems? Well, it's beginning to, I think, at least spark interest and an understanding, hopefully, that collaboration is necessary. So in North Texas, we partner with all of our competitors, everybody that does the same thing that we do. We have open lines of communication. We talk pretty often. They call us when they're looking for entry-level personnel or something specific, because they know that we can reach into the community, that we may actually have an intern or an apprentice, or we know of a school district or a program, a tech program that might fit that need. And so just, between all of those pieces in the ecosystem, the partners, the schools, the organizations, the people, just being able to reach out and communicate about needs and ideas is something that needs to continue to grow. Indeed. And Tyson, that's your model, right? I mean, a rising tide lifts all ships. You help us understand a little bit more about operationally the way you are getting things done.
Yeah, and I think we have the same challenges that you're hearing Mike talk about, the same challenges that Bob's discussing, we have here as well. So in Canada, each province is in charge of its own, public education system. We're talking K-12. And so what's tricky there is that, what we're hearing today, what we're talking about is that we're working really hard to build capacity. And so put tools in place, curriculum in place, training for teachers, training for students, increasing access to broadband or access to high speed so they can get access to the tools that they need for this level of experiential learning and career pathways into cyber. So there's a bunch of capabilities, capacity that's flying in close formation. What's tricky is aligning it and connecting it all together. And so we face the issue here in this country where jurisdictionally, you might get one province figuring itself out, but then other provinces aren't there yet. And so we're looking for, the federal oversight. So from a government perspective, having that federal oversight body, whether that's here, it's the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, working with the provinces in their public education systems, and then leveraging that relationship with industry to provide the capacity for curriculum, et cetera, and technologies. So that we're still helping coordinate that. That's one of our future goals, is to get much more pan-Canadian in terms of how we deliver that. We've done a proof of concept on that. And so the province of New Brunswick, which is, right where we're headquartered, is, fairly significantly ahead of most provinces in this country when it comes to coordination and collaboration with public education to deliver skills, training, and provide access and resources to the youth. So both from that protection of the infrastructure side to the delivery of curriculum side. And now the goal is to say, okay, how do we scale this across other jurisdictions and other provinces in the country? Fascinating, situation or story, I guess, that we heard through research in this area was a few years ago, I guess, post New Orleans Hurricane Katrina. We were doing some research and we found out that some of the schools that were completely destroyed, public schools, if you will, ended up, I believe the mayor of New Orleans said to the schools, you can rebuild the schools, but you should look at industry to come in and partner with you, because we really can't afford to rebuild the schools with public funds. And while a bit of a really, what we see as a really positive moment happened, which is industry stepped in and said, okay, we're going to help build these schools. And one school was built, and industry said, we'll make sure there are enough laptops for every kid, and we'll make sure there's high-speed internet made available. And then the other school had another industry partner said, well, hold on, we'll do you one better. And now all of a sudden that rising tide floats all students, because they had more access to capacity, technology, and resources. And the only person that, everyone benefited here, but the youth benefit, the teachers benefit. They can deliver education better. They can use more tools and resources. We struggle here in Canada, where in the public education system, you roll the dice of whether you have a have or a have not school in a public education system. And so it's tough. To Bob's comment, and what a phenomenal that whole program around the homework, where you're delivering high speed mobile hotspots so that youth can participate. So this is where Canada needs to map that public education system across jurisdictions, figure out who has access to what capability and capacity. Federally, we're running a universal broadband initiative that the government of Canada is running to try and increase broadband capabilities for all individuals in the country, which of course trickles down and helps youth that are attending school virtually from at home being able to continue to participate. So the coordination is going to be the toughest part from what we see in our backyard, and I would assume that's going to be the same high-level concerns in the U.S. as well.
Yeah, indeed. And are there any kind of legal or intellectual property or country restrictions from deploying some of the great things that you and CyberNB are doing here in the United States?
No. So for programs like our Cyber initiative, the Timeout comics, which by the way, we can't announce yet who is involved with us, but we will be fully animated and gamifying these comics into online platforms. We own the intellectual property for that, so we're more than happy to share that and get that down into the States as well. And we're looking for partnerships north of the border. This is, as a not-for-profit, our focus is to drive capacity and scalability across our ecosystem. And so it's not about the revenue, it's about, can we help as many youth as we possibly can A, be more digitally resilient and secure online, but B, get access to those, start to understand what career pathways are. I think Bob and Mike both mentioned it when they were talking earlier. And then another disparity that we're seeing here is in the education of the teachers and the guidance counselors as to what the actual careers are that these youth could be in. A lot of guidance counselors don't know what the NICE framework looks like and what all the different job specs could be for youth coming out of math, science, computer science. What industry partners are, sitting there looking for talent coming right out of grade 12. So education and awareness, not just for the students, but for the teachers, massive as well.
Yeah, indeed. And one of the things I learned from our work with NIST is there are actually 52 different work roles within the NICE framework. And so, we want middle school kids and all kids to be open to different ways of supporting the community. And speaking of supporting the community, I want to invite Vic Maloy. Hey, Vic, I'm so glad you're able to join us. I know you're crazy busy. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of this forum.
Indeed. And Vic, amongst other things, focuses on something that I'm sure all of us are going to find very, very important, and that's protecting religious institutions, faith-based institutions, and also underserved populations, which is exactly what Tyson was talking about. And Bob, that's what you're talking about with your work anywhere sort of technology. So Vic, tell us a little bit about Project Xander and your mission.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gary, and appreciate everything you've been doing with your leadership and promoting and elevating this platform to promote next generation leaders, because that's what it's all about. So here we are in San Antonio, Texas, and we call ourselves, quote unquote, Military City, USA. Some dare venture say Cyber City, but I'm like, a little bit more humility, folks. There's a lot to share, but we're a part of that great constellation. And during COVID, we identified a soft spot, and that soft spot was faith-based and nonprofits in our communities. And so a group of interested individuals came together, namely from the University of Texas, San Antonio, which happens to have the distinction of being a higher education unit certified by DHS for cybersecurity, and promoting and building that talent pipeline in higher education, as well as what they're doing in the K through 12 space. But we partnered with them with their professor, Dr. Greg White, who is the executive founder and one of the professors at the university, to take a group of undergraduate college students and mentor them up with or partner them up with a mentor from MITRE and other business sector representatives to do cybersecurity assessments free of charge to faith-based and nonprofits. And what that does is three things. First, it gives a meaningful work experience for students that are studying to take their role and take their place as the next generation leaders in practicing what they learn in the classroom. Second, it serves to support our community partners, where we identified in the 2 cohorts that we started in the spring semester. We're now in the fall semester of 2021, still, dealing with the pandemic and all those challenges. But on a virtual platform, we've been able to gather over 150 students, 50 plus organizations, and provide them meaningful risk management assessments that will guide them through what are those gaps, what are those seams, what are those risks that they may not have taken account for in how they operate as a public facing and a non-business type traditional organization. So what we found were a few things. Number one, there was no plan. So a lack of a plan is a lack of, setting yourself up for failure. There was also this, no IT staff, no resources, or no awareness of the resources that were made available to them. So through MITRE and their resources and what they have in the MITRE attack framework, we were able to take those students and then take those organizations and then walk them through that whole NIST 837 risk management framework process to identify those strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities to start putting together a incident response plan, start putting together a system security plan, have a fuller accountability of all the assets and resources that are pertinent to a faith-based and a nonprofit. Interestingly enough, in the middle of this, one of our organizations was hit with an identity theft attempt. And so we were Johnny on the spot to walk them through that process of, number one, don't go buy that gift card just to gain access back to your laptop and then, become sucked into that unfortunate situation of being victimized. But, able to walk them through that process of getting a backup and then establishing a new starting point, and then securing that soft spot as to how they were compromised from the outset. And then also it goes to Dr. Greg White's. He is once again the founder of the Community Cybersecurity Maturity Model framework, which looks at the entire community to assess how does a community with industry, academia, and government and those public services come together and increase their posture to protect and serve themselves better. So Project Xander, once again, if you think about Alexander the Great, protector of the people, defender of the people, we're tired of calling it the project that is there to support faith-based and nonprofit. So let's just give it a catchphrase, Alexander the Great, kind of going back to our Greek and Roman history. But to let folks know, hey, look, it's a shared responsibility. It's a meaningful way when you look at what Jen Easterly is doing at the national level with DHS, CISOs, JCDC, to, from the grassroots level, make that meaningful connection. We were fortunate enough to have in the last 30 days the opportunity to brief members of her staff. Dr. Dave Mussington came down to the National Security Collaboration Center and other locations in San Antonio, and we shared our experiences, and we shared this initiative and our desire to have this not only be in San Antonio, but in other municipalities, in other states, and other regions where you have these coalition of the willing to come together and point these soft targets in the right direction, be it a faith-based ISAL, be it the Department of Homeland Security's Operation Homefront webpage, joining these information sharing analysis organizations so that they're better suited to, prepare our next generation cybersecurity leaders. I know that's a lot of information, but very excited about Project Xander, very excited to share with you all.
Well, it's encapsulated here a little bit. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what we're looking at on screen right now?
So what you're looking at on our screen is we have a weekly update. And primarily right now, we're focused on the Bexar County area. In the spring of the spring semester, we had 14 organizations. We expanded it into the fall semester with 20 teams. And we had about 120 students and about 15, 20 mentors, come together and work with these students. And we secured a secure authentication messaging system so that we could not just use an email, but use a authenticated password protected multi-factor authentication in order to get in, to gather the information, produce the report, then disseminate that report. Our next phase is to work with organizations in California that are cybersecurity centers. In Colorado, there's the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center there. There is a Cybersecurity Collaboration Center in Florida, Georgia, and Virginia Tech, and so forth. So we're in the process of reaching out to those organizations. And as we move forward into 2022, we want to spread the DNA, so to speak, to make sure that what we're doing with DHS here, with the PSAs, the protective security agents, and the cybersecurity agents, making sure that they're all matched up from their community and what they're doing in their region and their focal points with these local grassroots level, tactical level, working with higher education, working with the economic development organizations to identify these faith-based organizations and these nonprofits to say, here's a free asset and resource that can help you at least get the journey started, and then also give back an opportunity for those organizations. Already MITRE and others have seen the talent that's coming out of these schools, and they're already kind of pinpointing, hey, I want you to look at this internship opportunity here, or I want you to actually start, looking at an entry-level opportunity to join our organization.
Well, let's turn to Bob. So Bob, this must be music to your ears, right, at Fortinet?
Yeah, it's good to be reaching out and serving those underrepresented, underserved communities, and I do appreciate that. And there's a lot of synergy involved in the public-private partnerships that do this type of thing. So I'm all for it. I guess for all of us, the thing we're trying to do is we're trying to develop that next generation, right? That next generation of cyber worker. And I'm gonna be very bold and step out here and say, the most important thing that we need to find in the cyber workers of tomorrow: curiosity. They have to be curious, and they have to be asking that "how does that work?" question. They have to be really involved in the the science of cybersecurity to understand how it really works. And it's the science, from the technology, but it's also the science of psychology that brings people to do the right thing at the right time.
Indeed, that's incredibly important because it's widely understood in the cybersecurity ecosystem that the overwhelming majority of hacks come because of simple human error, and to also understand like what's going on inside someone's brain just before they're getting ready to click on something. And one of the concepts we're working on is to actually use a trope that was done by Pixar, which from a comic called Inside Out, where it showed little characters inside a little girl's brain and how they operate, joy, fear, and stuff. And I think that's a perfect trope to understand how the criminals are manipulating what it means to be a human being to get you to, to do their evil deeds. What do you think about that, Tyson?
Yeah, so listening here from north of the border, Vic, great to connect with you, and awesome to hear what you're up to. Couldn't agree more. I think my overarching comment back, and it sounds like, so my overarching comment back based on what we're doing here with this kind of pan-Canadian ecosystem and working closely with friends south of the border, et cetera. My overarching comment would be this. When you hear about Project Xander, when you hear about initiatives like this, what would be, I think, ideal in north of the border, for example, we brought Cyber Titan, which is a form of Cyber Patriot, and but we still bumped into issues where school teams needed funding to participate. We had to find industry mentors, and yet so there's this pendulum of critical infrastructure. I would argue to you that we are reviewing what is critical infrastructure these days. You would argue, does the social fabric, do faith-based groups, do municipalities, do schools create part of our critical infrastructure? I'd argue yes. And so we're spending big money, industry's spending the money, the infrastructure owners, operators are spending the money on the one end of this pendulum to prevent and to spend money on awareness and technology and all the right tech. But then we have this underserved critical infrastructure groups who, quite frankly, for not much money, could actually really move the needle. I would love to see investments made by federal governments in the United States and in Canada to force multiply and fast forward how these underserved groups can actually become more aware, more trained, and more capable quicker, faster. Because we can spend all the time and money we want on these on the other end of the spectrum, but where we're going to continue to get hit is in the soft side of these faith-based groups, these municipalities, these schools who don't have the resources, time, and money as it stands today to get themselves secure. So I'll throw it out there and say, if we want to be, the next level of superhero, I think we need to, service those who need our help the most. And I'd argue that's a major gap in what we're doing today, that we need to put some real steam into that engine and help Vic in his initiatives, help Mike in the school initiatives to move the needle on what needs to be done. And we have the exact same challenges up here as well.
Indeed. And so as we're wrapping up here, Mike, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience to amplify your work? And how do they get a hold of you? You're muted again.
Certainly, I just want to echo Vic and Tyson. It's a mission. And I think there's that mission in a lot of people in this industry that just don't know exactly how to go about working towards it. And I'll touch just quickly on the Cyber Patriot and the other programs. I think there's a ton of people out there that would love to be a mentor, and I think if we can kind of flip it, there's students that want to be on a team, and then you've got to find a mentor and a sponsor. I think if we try and figure out how to collaborate more with the mentors and sponsors, and then allow them to go and find the right teams, that very similarly to the apprentice and intern opportunities, we've got to start talking with organizations in the community and find and cultivate these opportunities for these passionate people to fit into. That's really the only way we're going to put a dent in the workforce problem. But as far as our program, so Blackswan Cybersecurity runs the Fusion Center that we're piloting this project to put security operations centers on campus in high schools. That is supported by our nonprofit. We have a 501c3 called Cyber Defense Center, and that's really where we do all of our interns and apprentice and our research projects. We actually do some pretty cool stuff on the research side. We've got a couple of patents there working with universities and even some high school students. Reach out. We'd love to collaborate, compare notes, think of something new, figure out another way of going about it, or just trying to enhance each other's missions.
Indeed. And Vic, any final thoughts you'd like to amplify, and how does our audience get a hold of you?
Awesome. The best way to get to me is on LinkedIn. So hopefully guys that are watching on LinkedIn, just Google Vic Maloy and be happy to connect with you. And once again, I just want to say thanks, Gary, for all your content that you've been producing and developing and bringing together such an esteemed panel of presenters and champions.
You're welcome. Okay. And Tyson?
Yeah, I'd echo that from Vic, Gary. Really well done. I think more collaboration, the better. Collaboration is the key. And to get a hold of us, it's CyberNB.ca, and check out the site. We have all of our key initiatives there on our website, and always looking forward to more partnerships with ecosystem partners. So feel free to reach out.
Indeed. And Bob, any final thoughts from you?
This is a great panel. A lot of really smart people here. And what we need to do is we all just need to go out and get to our networks and let those networks connect to other networks and let those connect to other networks. And that's how we solve the problem, is we take it, one action at a time, and we fix one at a time until suddenly everybody is elevated. Somebody used my favorite nautical analogy earlier, that the rising tide floats all boats. That's what we can do in the education community, and that's how we can keep the cyber ecosystem working well and supporting our customers, which are the students and the teachers.
Indeed. Well, on behalf of a grateful digital universe, thanks to all of you and to our audience for being real-life, unsung cyber heroes who protect us at work and home and at school. We really, really appreciate it. I hope that you and your loved ones have a happy and healthy holiday season as well. Hey, everyone. We're back with a couple very, very special guests today. Why don't you say hi to our audience?
Hello, my name is Robin Ramos. And I'm Diana Likaba. I'm her digital art teacher, or animation art teacher.
Animation art teacher. So before we started the recording, you said something that I had to correct you on, which is that you are just a teacher. No, you're the future of the digital universe, aren't you?
absolutely. My students are the creators of the future.
Yeah, indeed. And how did you get into teaching, Diana?
Well, it's always been a passion of mine to be a teacher since I was in college, and I've been teaching now for over 35 years, and I'm still not tired of it. I still enjoy what I do. So, and I love seeing my students succeed, and especially enter contests and follow their dreams and be able to pursue those. And so I love doing that, and that's why I continue to do what I'm doing.
Well, then what I'm about to say is also as much credit to you for being the inspiration for Robin. And Robin, I want to be the first to congratulate you on being the winner of the K through 12 Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week poster contest for 9th through 12th grade. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. That's so cute.
Oh, come on. You knew we had to do something with graphics. I mean, you're an art teacher, for goodness sake. So Robin, so tell us a little bit about what your thinking was in the poster that you created, which we'll be sharing with our audience.
So my poster was an inspiration for pop art. So I really wanted to express the piece with color and very vibrant colors. Also, the dynamic poses, I wanted a little bit of perspective with what we'll show later is the world and a businessman, and kind of to represent the whole cybersecurity importance. And yeah, it's just a lot of dynamic that I wanted to include in it.
Yeah, you accomplished it, quite beautifully. What was the kind of the process that you went through when you learned about this contest?
So I learned about the contest through my teacher. Yes. We are learning how to use Adobe Illustrator. So that's where I made my art piece. I use a lot of vectors. I use blob tools. It's my first time using this program, but I think I did it successfully. So yeah.
That's cool. And do you envision pursuing a career in the creative arts, or tell us about that?
Yes, I do. I'm actually interested in majoring in something art related, not specifically anything yet, but the general art department.
And have you had the opportunity to create other things that have been publicly viewed in any way?
Yes. One of my art pieces for my Art 1 class my sophomore year went to state base, and I got recognized there. And yeah, that's pretty much the only one so far. Right now I'm in a painting class, and I really enjoy it. So. Yeah.
And so maybe you can help our audience understand a little bit about how you make things look cool, because one of the things that we loved about your work is say, okay, that's a really big idea represented here, and it looks cool. How do you do that? I'm an older guy, so I need some help.
Okay, I think the first thing I do is I think about who my audience is. Who's going to see this, and how is it going to appeal to them? So if it's going to be something more artistic in a serious sense, I'm going to do something that maybe the viewer has to think more about, maybe interpret it a certain way. But if I'm going to do something like pop art, like for this project, I'm going to use more colors, something that will really grab the viewer's attention. So yeah.
Well, speaking of your audience, so we work in a very interesting field of cybersecurity. It's not something that everyone knows about. Did you have occasion to do a little bit of research, about it, or how did you come up with the imagery that you used?
Well, I used the prompt as kind of inspiration as to kind of protect the world. So I wanted to represent like an Earth and protection with a lock. So that's what I use. So mostly like outside inspiration from like the prompt and what kind of vague ideas, what comes to mind first when you hear cybersecurity. And that's what I use. Yeah.
And can you recall the kinds of things that you heard or thought about?
I don't have any specific examples, unfortunately.
Okay. And you know, when you yourself, you know, now you're thinking a little bit more about cybersecurity because of the contest. Are you doing anything on the devices that you use, like your cell phone or you know, your laptop? Have you had occasion to learn a little bit more about staying safe online?
On staying safe online, I don't use a lot of social media, but that's kind of what I've been taught to do, if that makes sense. Ad blockers, I think, are a great example of cybersecurity. I use ad blockers at home. I don't know if that'll count as one, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience?
I don't know what to say. Keep doing
Okay.
what you like, I guess.
I would like to add that at our school and even our district, they're really heavy into cybersecurity, and we have some really in-depth courses here to help the students learn and be educated in cybersecurity. And this district in San Antonio also is really heavy into, they're like some of the top people in learning how to protect us in social media. So that's how we actually found out about the contest, was the teachers that were also teaching in cybersecurity. And it's a big thing here.
Well, really, really glad to hear that. Well, on behalf of a grateful digital universe, Robin and Diana, thank you so much for who you are and what you have accomplished here. I'm sure it's just the beginning of many, many great things for your future.
Thank you so much.
Okay, have a great day.
Bye. Thanks, Gary.